So the Anti-People and Illegal Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 of 2023, which means the very same person we are dealing with at the moment in Zimbabwe has changed the constitution twice. He is attempting to do it thrice. This time around, one person, you would think that he has served more than 2 terms. No, he hasn't served more than 2 terms. He has served 1 term and is almost moving towards 1 term, 3 years, which would be the 2nd term according to the constitution of Zimbabwe. Now we know that in Parliament there is the process of Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026 that is being processed at the moment. And yesterday, Parliament released shocking figures and statistics to the people of Zimbabwe. They claim that more than 90%, and to be precisely 99.4, not even 90, 99.4% of Zimbabweans back 2030 bid. That is what the statistics of Mnangagwa through that ZANU PF controlled parliament is telling the people of Zimbabwe, and it is shocking many Zimbabweans because this is appearance versus reality. Greetings and welcome to your lovely channel, the Hlonipani Global News. If you're watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. So this is what the Parliament of Zimbabwe yesterday presented. Now, in terms of written submissions, they are saying total submissions amounted to 470,117. It gives the vibes of some form of a referendum, in my view. And they say out of these submissions, those in favor, there were 469,040. They favored Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026. And you would understand, we reported it when it was happening. I remember urging Zimbabweans in their numbers, they could have countered this to make submissions. I remember saying if a template can be designed and each and every Zimbabwean stands up and reject this illegal Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026, because ZANU PF, when they noticed that Zimbabweans in their numbers, they were writing submissions, not submissions of 1 page, not poshed submissions, but real submissions that were highlighting real concerns, institutions writing. If you look at these submissions that are 1,077 written submissions, you will discover that they are thorough submissions, pages that were written, people of Zimbabwe investigating into this. Now, so there are many Zimbabweans. I like the comment that I have seen that we are talking of more than 15 million population and about 470 people in terms of submission now being used by ZANU PF, 400,000 being used by ZANU PF to justify this illegal process. So sometimes, you know, if Zimbabwean citizens were actually, in terms of action, forward in everything, especially issues relating to political decisions that are taken, which could further endanger their lives. I think if Zimbabweans participated in this process, we would be talking about something else. Fully, but very few actually participated, most probably because of lack of political education, or people have just given up. They have decided to give up entirely on ZANU PF. But the statistics, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense at all. And then they say public hearing submissions. This is where it's interesting. So they were saying during public hearings, there were 67,688,000. And those who were chosen during the consultation process, 67,302 were in favor of ZANU PF, and only 386 were not in favor. The very same process where those who raised their hands and spoke against Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026 were actually kidnapped. We've got cases of kidnapping, cases of torture during the process, but people participated and they were never actually chosen by the chairpersons of these portfolio committees that were undertaking these public hearings. So here, it's actually a non-existing figure. I strongly believe all these figures were cooked by ZANU PF. They could not cook the email figures. Now, in email figures, they were beaten because this one, I think it shows also the crop of ZANU PF supporters. These are people who are most probably not educated. They don't know how to send an email. And about 2,232 Zimbabweans made their submissions. I'm part of those Zimbabweans who made a submission. And they say 760 was in favor. The number is low, and about 1,472 they were against. So in simple terms, 99.6% of the Zimbabweans, according to the statistics that they have released, favored Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026. This is a hogwash process, to say the least. It is not reflective of the will of the people of Zimbabwe. Anyway, let me try to read the story that was done by Zim Live. Maybe I may find out something more than what I have just said. It says Parliament claims 99.4% of Zimbabweans back Mnangagwa's 2030 bid. And says history tells us that many projects pushed without consensus and ownership of the citizens will collapse. A parliamentary committee report tabled in the National Assembly on Wednesday claimed that out of 540,037 total submissions received during consultations on the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment number 3 bill, some 537,102 or 99% supported the proposed changes, which include extending the presidential term and scrapping direct election for the presidency. The figures tabled by the Joint Portfolio Committee on Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs and 8 other committees drew immediate incredulity from critics who say they represent a grotesque distortion of public opinion and cement long-standing accusations that the nationwide hearings were a choreographed exercise rather than a genuine democratic consultation. The report recommends adoption of all key provisions of the bill, including extending electoral cycle from 5 to 7 years, a change that, as applied to the incumbent, would push President Mnangagwa's current term due to end in September 2028 to 2030, as well as replacing the direct presidential vote with election by parliament. On Wednesday, the bill passed its second reading in parliament and will now be debated before vote. The bill is expected to sail through. ZANU PF holds a 2/3 majority in the lower house and overwhelmingly controls the upper house through traditional leaders and other proxies who tend to vote with the ruling party, giving it the constitutional arithmetic to rewrite, in fact, the supreme law. Justice Minister Zimbabwe has previously indicated the legislative process would take approximately 1 month. Observers say it might breeze through within 7 days. The 99.4% support figure adjusts sharply with the political reality of a deeply contested country. In the 2023 general elections, Mnangagwa won the presidency with just 52.6% of the vote, according to Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, barely clearing the 50% threshold required to avoid a runoff. The opposition and international observers disputed that result, which was announced after an election marked by widespread intimidation and alleged vote buying by ZANU PF agents posted outside polling station. Tendai, the convener of the Constitutional Defenders Forum, said it remains as clear as Pike's staff that the overwhelming majority of Zimbabweans are totally and absolutely against the bill. It remains clear that despite spending millions of dollars to manufacture consensus, the regime has dismally failed to garner any support for its vulgar project. Further, despite repression, violence, weaponization of the law against those opposed to the bill, the syndicate has failed to stop the wave of overwhelming support against the sobriety. It is clear to all that the bill is a creation and gangsters, commonly known as Uganda, rapacious wealth accumulators who are running and controlling Zimbabwe's deep, insecure and insidious shadow state, a phalanx of illiterate thieves that have no soul nor morality. He added that history tells us that any project pushed without consensus and ownership of the citizens will collapse. Critics like BT argue the methodology behind the parliamentary consultation guaranteed a predetermined outcome. Reports of intimidation, busing of ZANU PF supporters, and the exclusion of dissenting voices characterized hearings across the country, with some venues seeing violence against those who attempted to oppose the bill. The numbers in the report carry their own internal anomalies. Of the 117 written submissions physically brought to Parliament, 469,040 supported the bill. Of 2,232 email submissions, a channel more accessible to educated urban Zimbabweans, only 760 were in support, while 1.472 opposed it. The main figure, less susceptible to organized mobilization, tells a starkly different story. Attendance at the much criticized physical public hearings, meanwhile, totaled just 67,688 people nationally, a relatively modest figure of a country of some 16 million, raising questions about who actually participated and under what conditions. Of what number? Parliament says 67,302 people backed the controversial bill against a paltry 386 in opposition. The report lands amid a wall of opposition from civic society, legal bodies, religious organizations, and even figures from within Zimbabwe's security establishment. On Tuesday, a group of retired generals and former civil servants publicly voiced their opposition to the bill. They said they had met with Mnangagwa last month to convey their concerns, but that the president told them whoever wins, wins, a reference to whether the bill would pass. War veterans and activists have also challenged the bill in the Constitutional Court, which has reserved judgment while it considers their argument. Chief Justice Elizabeth Kwaunza last week blocked the live streaming of proceedings. In that case, a ruling that itself sparked controversy. The Law Society of Zimbabwe Commission Chairperson Jesima Jome was removed by Mnangagwa after the body criticized Parliament's physical public hearings. Various civil society coalitions have raised constitutional objections, particularly over Section 3287 of the Constitution, which explicitly prohibits any amendments extending a term of office from benefiting the person currently holding that office. Beyond the term extension and the shift to parliamentary election of the president, the bill proposed a wide range of constitutional changes, transferring voter registration from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to the Registrar General, establishing a separate delimitation commission, raising qualifications for the Attorney General to Supreme Court judge level, increasing Senate members from 80 to 90 through 10 presidential appointees, vesting judicial appointments in the president in consultation with the Judiciary Service Commission, and repealing the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission. The Parliamentary Committee on Justice commended against some clauses, amongst them the abolition of the Zimbabwe Gender Commission, bowing to pressure from women's organization, and recommended retaining another traditional convention, blocking the proposed amendment that would have allowed traditional leaders to participate in partisan politics. ZANU PF has governed Zimbabwe without interruption since independence from Britain in 1980, first under Robert Gabriel Mugabe, who ruled for 37 years, and then under Mnangagwa, who came to power after a military coup in November 2017 that ended Mugabe's tenure. Mnangagwa won the 2018 election, the first since the coup, in a disputed vote, and was re-elected in 2013 with 2 5-year terms under the current constitution. His mandate would ordinarily end in 2028. The proposed amendment will reset that clock. Thank you very much for watching us. If you are watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. You can financially support this channel by pressing the join button and be part of our members who are the heartbeat of this channel. You can equally do so by pressing the thanks button and send us stars. Okancuba Mhlabane is signing